Let's go into a client's folder and look at some of the functionality available therein. We are in the client Laura Hans folder. By clicking this button, it will create a new folder for a new client. I can delete Laura Hahn if I wish. I can edit the information that I provided when I created her folder. For example, there were some basic pieces of information, some symptoms that I linked, some notes that I made, etc. And by clicking this button, it allows me to reconfigure that cover sheet. This is the refresh button, and this basically resets it back to the client view. These buttons are rather valuable at this time because I'm in the client folder Laura Hahn. If I click this, it moves me to my next client folder, and this moves me to my next client folder. So what I'm now doing is, instead of using this function where I'm looking at this client's folder and saying, okay, well, I'm done with that, let me go back to the next client folder, what I can do is I can use the next record button and previous record button, and that'll put me back to Neo. This will put me forward to Bob, and then following the next client, etc. So these next record buttons or previous record buttons are very useful to move between one folder to the next without having going through the whole process of going to the entire list of clients. This function also works with evaluations. If I'm looking at this evaluation for Laura Hahn, this is Laura Hahn's fourth evaluation, I can select the next record. It shows me the next record for sample compare, and so it's surfing through my different evaluations when I was on the evaluations tab. So again, let's go back to our client's view and explore some more functionality inside of our client's folder. This allows us to create a new voice file for our client, and this will reset this view. And this is a button that compares two or more voice files. So I've got my list of voice files here, and they're Mundane 2, Health 2, Mundane 1, Health 1. If I select more than one of these items, I can compare them. So let's look at Laura's Mundane files. When I select this button, it allows me to see those two voice files superimposed on each other, and this allows me to see any similar patterns. That looks very dense. Of course, my screen is extremely small, and presumably you'll be on a larger screen. But what I can do is I have this lens that allows me to look much more closely. If I pull this away, I can see that I'm able to adjust how close I'm looking at these voice files. If I left click and hold when my icon turns to a hand and slide this, I can slide through the two voice file images and look for dissimilarities or similarities. If I find something interesting, like this looks like it's something that is worth looking at more closely, I can roll my mouse wheel toward my monitor, and it allows me to zoom in. And then I can select that point. And you'll find that I selected that point as a point of interest, and I can go back to this and keep looking for things that are interesting for one reason or another. Since I have two patterns here, I can activate or deactivate them if I so wish. And so ultimately, you could use all of them. Let's say we have all four of these, and I want to do a comparison. Well, it gets to be quite noisy visually, but there might be a reason that you want to experiment with this and discover some of the overall patterns that seem similar. We can look at her mundane files separately by turning off the healths. Then we can activate the health and remove the mundanes. All kinds of things we can do to kind of see if we have any similar patterns. By using this zoom function, we can look at these two patterns for similarities or dissimilarities. So this is another feature that's found in our client's folder cover sheet page, you might say. It's a long title, but that's the idea. Since I have these selected, you'll see that the voice files can be deleted. And one last thing I'd like to show you is the Nano Voice chart. This is still in development, but if I select a voice file, and this voice file is Mundane 2, I can see the Nano Voice analyzing that particular voice file. And this is just a beginning of what that functionality is. It will become more effective in the near future. Another is the Evaluations tab. In my Clients folder, it lists all of the evaluations I've done, and it tells me what session they're from. And finally, on the Info tab, shows us basic information on the client's cover sheet, some notes that I added at that time, and the symptoms that I linked to my client. And so this cover sheet can be edited by selecting this Edit button. By clicking this, it sends us back to the edit mode where we began when we created this cover sheet, and maybe her name is Hanley. Laura Hanley or something like that. So I can save that information. I can add more notes to this if I so wish. This shared with function will someday allow you to send this client's folder to a mentor or someone to whom you wish to get some counsel on some of the anomalies that you're seeing, basically working hand in hand with a bara or a practitioner. If I click Save, it'll save any edits that I make, and I can save and close this, or save and new, meaning I can create a new client folder by using Save and New. If I save and close, you'll see that it just sends us back to my client page showing me all of the clients.